Hi guys, Crystal here from ChristaCoDesign. Welcome to the next week's videos for the Peekaboo Sun Hat Crochet Along. Now we're going to be working on the sides of our hat. This here is the crown circle that we started with, and I am modeling the toddler size for you here. So I am going to be starting row 14, which is where I start the V-stitches, and showing you how that works. Your stitch counts may be different, but the process will be the same, no matter which size hat you're working on. Okay, so I have pulled out my stitch marker, and my first stitch is here, and I'm going to start with a slip stitch to the first one, and then I'm going to chain 4. This will count as a double crochet and a chain 1. In this same stitch, I am going to double crochet. And now I have created my first V-stitch of the round. Now for these V-stitches, we're going to skip 2 and then work another V-stitch here in this third one, and that is going to be a double crochet, chain 1, and a double crochet. There we go, 2 V-stitches made. So I'll just continue to follow that pattern around, skipping 2, double crochet, chain 1, double crochet. All right, that brings us to the end of round 14 for the toddler size. So to finish, we have our last 2 stitches to skip, and then we're going to slip stitch to our chain space here, which is really our chain 4 that we started with. Okay, so there we go. We have a really nice join there that is not super apparent. It looks really good. Okay, so now for your next rounds, you are going to be V-stitching inside your V-stitches, basically. And to get that started, you'll continue with chain 4. Oops. 4, which counts as a double crochet and a chain 1. And then in that first chain space, we will double crochet and create our starting V-stitch for that round. Now we're going to skip over these and into the space here. We're going to create another V-stitch, double crochet, chain 1, double crochet all in that chain space. And that is what we will continue to repeat around. This part works up really fast on the sides. And here we are at the end of our second round of V-stitches. And we're just going to join in the same fashion as the first one, where we slip stitch to the chain space of our first V-stitch, kind of accentuating that space since it's really formed by chain 4. All right, and now we are going to repeat that row one more time for the toddler size. Check your pattern for specifics, but again, the process will be the same. Just continue to V-stitch around into each of those V-stitches and joining with a slip stitch to the chain space. All right, that brings us to the end of our V-stitch rows, and now we're ready to start our rows of chain 5 spaces, which kind of inspired the name of the Peekaboo because it's just a little bit more open all around that section. Okay, so to end our previous round, we are slip stitching to the chain space of the first V-stitch we made. Then we're going to chain 1 and single crochet in that same space. And that's going to be our first stitch of the round. If you feel the need to mark it, you can do that. Sometimes that single crochet doesn't jump out at you there at first. Then I am going to chain 5. Like so. Then I will skip the next V-stitch, this one, and I will single crochet into the one after that, right over here. And that is going to connect my chain 5. So we have single crochet, skip a V-stitch, chain 5, single crochet into the next V-stitch. So now I am going to repeat that. 5 chains, skip a V-stitch, single crochet. Here, this will be an open. Skip, single crochet. Okay, that brings us to the end there. We have our last chain 5, our V-stitch to skip, and we're just going to take this one to the first single crochet we made, marked in our stitch marker, and we're going to slip stitch it there. There you go. There are your chain 5 spaces. Okay, now we are on our row just after our chain 5s and single crochets. And now we're going to continue our V-stitch pattern around. So the first thing we'll do is chain 4, and then we will double crochet in that same stitch, which is the single crochet that we made first, and we slip stitch 2. And that's going to make our first V-stitch of the round after our chain 5s. For me on the toddler hat, it is round 18 that I'm on. Then we are going to skip 2 chains, 1, 2, and in this middle center third chain in, we are going to V-stitch, which is going to be your double crochet, chain 1, double crochet. There you are. Then you will skip the next 2 chains and V-stitch into the single crochet that you used to join your chain 5s. Easy peasy. We're just going to repeat that around. V-stitch, skip 2, V-stitch, skip 2. So you'll be V-stitching in your single crochet and into the center stitch, center chain of your chain 5s all the way around. All right, ending toddler hat round 18. It's our first row of V-stitches after the chain 5s. Slip stitch to your first V-stitch. Get some more yarn here. Chain 4 into the chain space of the previous V-stitch, double crochet, and that will be your first V-stitch. Now, just as in our previous V-stitch rows, we're going to V-stitch into our V-stitches around for this row and the next one. So 2 more rows of V-stitches, and then we will be ready to start our brim, which will be the next crochet along release. That wraps up the sides of the Peekaboo Sun hat. I have all of my V-stitch rows completed, which for the toddler hat brings me up to row 20. And I have my chain 5 gaps here, my little peekaboos. And the next portion we will be starting next week, and it will be the brim. So your hat should have the crown section here completed, and the sides with your V-stitches and peekaboos. It should look something like that. I look forward to sharing more of the pattern with you next week when we get started on the brim. Don't hesitate to ask questions and share your pictures. You can find the crochet along at ChristaCoDesign.com.